Fáilte Arashka Ireland AM. A recent study claims that following a plant-based diet can extend your lifespan by up to, get this, 10 years. So does this mean that going vegan will help us all to live longer? And here to discuss is nutritional therapist from Glenville Nutrition, Heather Leeson. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning.
Let's start at the very beginning. What is a vegan diet exactly?
Yeah, so a vegan diet is a diet without any meat products. So fish, eggs, obviously meat, no animal-based products, should I say, dairy, and also things like honey.
Yes, anything you can get from...
Anything from animals is off the menu.
Generally speaking, broadly speaking, is a vegan diet good for us?
So it can be. And the studies that have shown positive benefits are interesting. If you look at what the vegan diet cohort were eating, they all increase their intake of plant-based foods. So more veggies, more fruit, nuts, seeds and pulses, the vegetarian protein, things like beans and lentils. And that's healthy for all of us. You don't need to be a vegan to get those benefits. But the problem now, as veganism is much more popular, there are many more vegan options, which is great, but some of those are ultra-processed.
Yes.
So vegan food has this health halo, but if you're buying ultra-processed vegan food, and there's a study, a very new study showing actually that's no benefit to you. It's actually increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease, like any ultra-processed food.
Of course.
So if you switch to eating like vegan burgers, vegan chips, vegan ice cream, vegan chocolate, etc., that's not going to help you at all.
Yes, just the vegan label doesn't automatically make something healthy.
Exactly.
So some of these articles, they're talking about the long-term and the short-term health benefits. You might talk us through a bit of that.
Yeah, so I mean, short-term, the problem with a vegan diet is that you can become a little bit deficient even pretty quickly in some key nutrients. Now, there are benefits because you're upping your fibre, but you want to be very careful about things like iron and B12. They're the biggies in a vegan diet because most of us will get our iron and B12 from meat, for example. And if you're vegan, you're not having that. Now, it's totally possible for most of us to balance our diet and put those in, for example, the form of, for iron, things like lentils, tofu, which a lot of people think they don't like, but actually is nicer than you think.
I love tofu. It's delicious. You just got to know how to cook it.
Exactly. Or for B12, things like B12 is a little bit harder, but Marmite nutritional yeast. But you might want to check your levels, especially if you're tired or if you're longer term vegan. And then longer term as well, nutrients like calcium. We know vegans have a higher incidence of osteoporosis. Zinc, omega-3 is a biggie for me. So when I'm checking levels of omega-3 in clinic, I think I've only had one vegan who had enough and she was supplementing. Because vegan omega-3 we get from oily fish.
Yes.
If you're not having that, you can put in your linseeds and your chia seeds, but you don't get so much from that. So that's where you might want to supplement.
As long as you keep abreast of it, I suppose.
Exactly.
We'll come to that in just a second. You mentioned earlier the ultra-processed foods. So this, I think, is a downfall in whatever diet or lifestyle you're on. It's not specific to a vegan diet. But you might discuss how one can spot these ultra-processed foods. What are the warning signs we should be looking for?
Really easy. You look at the ingredient list and if it reads like a recipe, you know, falafel, if you're making them at home, you would need chickpeas, herbs, spices, etc. If it reads like an ingredient list and you recognise the ingredients and you would have them at home, that's not ultra-processed. If it has additives and colourings and preservatives, as in non-vegan food, if it's got a long list of chemicals that you don't recognise, that is an ultra-processed food. And it is okay occasionally to have that. But if you're regularly, daily having those kinds of ultra-processed foods, they are not good for you. Vegan or not, they are not good for you.
I always say it's like if there's ingredients with over 4 syllables that I can't pronounce, that's a danger, you know?
Exactly.
Could you speak us through some of the things you have here?
Yeah, so there are loads of really good, ready-made vegan foods, and that's great when you're...
It's convenience as well.
Exactly.
You need to be able to grab things on the go.
Exactly. So, you know, something like a vegetable and lentil soup or falafel or tofu. And again, you know, there's good versions. I've brought in some good samples here. Couldn't bring myself to buy the bad ones. But the bad ones, if you look at, you'll see them very, very quickly from the ingredient list. And it is great to have some shortcuts in the fridge. Of course it is. And the other challenge and the way where you need to work a little bit harder is on the protein for vegans.
Yes, I'm vegetarian and I'm often asked, where'd you get all your protein?
Yeah, and I think about where you might get your protein. So as a vegetarian, you can still have eggs and dairy. Fish might be off the menu, meat and chicken. That's where most of us get our protein. And think about why you want protein in your diet. It keeps you fuller for longer, but you need it for growth and repair. So it's really important for example, kids or pregnant women. And as we get older, we need more protein as well to maintain our muscle mass. When you're vegan, it's a little bit harder. There are loads of options like nuts, seeds, the vegetarian, the pulses like chickpeas, lentils, beans, peas, hummus. They're all full of protein, really good sources. But it's a bit harder. You might want to be adding in things like quinoa or other grains, like you can buy chickpea pasta, lentil pasta, so you might want to substitute that, and you might want to put in a protein powder, but that's a little bit harder. You can do it, but it requires a bit more work.
Yeah, so I think sometimes with diets like these, vegan, vegetarian, it requires maybe at the start a lot of planning.
Yeah.
But then once you get into the hang of it,
Absolutely.
you know, like if you're
Absolutely.
eating a meat diet, you know that you have meat with every meal and
Yeah,
that's your protein.
exactly.
But once you're vegan or vegetarian, you just need to make sure that you have something like that in your plate with every meal.
Exactly. So a little bit of planning up front, and then you're just building that habit. The other point, I guess, is it's not going to suit everyone. So some people will do really well on a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, and other people won't necessarily. And you can check your levels very easily with your GP of things like iron and B12 and the other nutrients, you know, you can get checked. And if you're low in those, then you have the decision, do I supplement or do I go back onto a diet that has more of those foods? It might not suit me.
I mean, nothing's a one size fits all.
Exactly.
Everybody is different, so you have to adapt to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to me about when vegans go out to eat in restaurants. Has it improved? I had a friend, I was just saying to you off air, I had a friend who's vegan, and every time we went out, all she got were chips and potatoes.
Yeah, that day has gone. Luckily, there's so many more options out there now. And there's some cuisines that lend themselves better to vegan food. Things like Indian food is amazing. And some of the Asian foods where you're getting lots of tofu dishes cooked deliciously.
Yes.
So they're really good. There are great options out there. I think probably all of us could benefit from having a couple of vegan meals every week. It's much more sustainable and healthy.
Balance.
There are loads of options when you go out now.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the stuff we have in front of us. You mentioned this stuff earlier are good sources of iron, was it?
So this is your iron here. So lentils are an amazing source of iron. Actually, if you have a good portion of lentils, that's almost the same as a piece of meat. It's a different form of iron though. So you need to make sure that with the vegetarian sources of iron like tofu and lentils, you're having vegetables or fruit, because vitamin C enhances the absorption. Exactly. But, you know, most vegans and vegetarians will be having loads of plants in their diet. It's plant-based rather than a vegan diet that you want. But an iron supplement can be useful, especially if you're tired or if you know, you're prone to being low in iron, or you're a woman of childbearing age where you might be losing a little bit of blood every month, so you want to top that up. But in terms of iron, two things. Number one, you want to use something that's nice and absorbable. So something like Galfer that's commonly used can cause stomach issues. And number two, there is a condition called hemochromatosis, iron overload, that's more common in Ireland than in other places. So don't automatically assume you are low in iron. Absolutely. So some of the good multivitamins that I would use with vegans and vegetarians, they won't have iron in them. Just in case, we'll check the iron and we'll put it in separately. So be careful.
Okay. Heather, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thanks very much.
I'm kind of a bit hungry after that, but thank you. After the break, if you want to treat yourself to some weekend getaways, we've got just the spots for you. We're talking travel in just a few minutes.